CDC insider that is going to be talking about some of these things. There are some people still out there that have courage. That's what we need today, is that kind of courage. The age of cowardice in the United States and being caught up in your pension and being caught up in how much you make and your next promotion and your granite countertops and all of that, those days are gone. We're on the precipice of big danger environmentally and economically. The dollar will collapse. It will collapse eventually. The IMF just recognized the Chinese yuan as a reserve currency. The Chinese has been buying gold to back that up. We owe them $1.5 trillion. They can't call that debt because we can't pay it. What they can do is make the yuan the reserve currency. When that happens, the United States economy collapses and the dollar is no longer of any value. Okay, so what do? I saw this happen to me personally. My wife, and especially my oldest son, were almost terminal. They covered it up. They told me I could never say I worked for the CIA. They told them they could never tell anybody about their case because of the state secrets privilege. What do you do in a case like that? Well, there's only one thing to do. You write an expose. So I wrote From the Company of Shadows. Not for self-glorification, trust me. There was none of it in that. It was one heck of a battle. When the book was written, I'll show you an excerpt. This is one of the excerpts from the book, one of the pages of many. There is nothing classified in this excerpt at all. Nothing. It's talking about Blackout began receiving threatening letters accusing them of security violations and commanding them not to exchange correspondence with our family. And just a system that they use of intimidation is what it's talking about. And they blacked it out. Now, based on an executive order issued by President Ronald Reagan, for the CIA to black information out because of negligence or because of it's embarrassing is illegal. It's criminal to do that. Violation of the Constitution, supreme law of the land. Well, they did. So, here's another excerpt from the book. Now, this talks about what they do to the families. They take away their names. They give them fake names like the Doe family. There's fake names here that are blacked out. They're not even their real names. They're fake names, but they black them out. Because they don't want you to know that they use fake names to cover the identities of innocent mothers and children who have been exposed to serious toxins in a secret government program. This picture that I put in the book has a lot of meaning. I'll explain that to you in a moment. Down at the bottom, Blackout's identities and case facts are hidden in secret. That's not even their name behind that blackout. It's a general term. They didn't want anybody to know that they do this to civilians. Real important. So what did I do? I call this in chapter 25, the tyranny of secrecy. We have a tyrannical government that is now functioning with a huge abuse of secrecy and silencing anybody that will stand against it by classifying everything. This photograph here, when I wrote the book and they blacked these things out, I had a decision to make. What am I going to do about this? I swore an oath to the Constitution. Who's going to win, government intimidation or the Constitution? Well, it's a painful choice, but it's kind of an easy one. So I built a code into the book. I refer to it as a shadow code, and there are things in it like this. This shadow is the actual shadow of the young man that almost died from this toxic exposure. They didn't know whose shadow that was. They do now. Down here, it says, my family was devastated by our government's abuse of blackout. They don't want you to know how they tried to silence me. They blacked it out. Although it's out there in the public in other places. There's studies this thick written on that thing. So I built a code into the book. It's a numerical code, and it weaves through there. And if you follow the numerical sequence, it opens up what these blackouts actually say and what they use to try to silence our family. Okay? I learned one thing. If you play by their rules, they will destroy you. If you realize that freedom is only in the truth and you come out full bore and just lay it out there, that's probably why I'm still alive today. You go out on the internet and you see things like, I'm surprised this guy's not in a dumpster. Well, I'm still alive because I came out. I have this thing called the Constitution and freedom of speech. I came out full bore and made this stuff public. If you fear them, they have you. That's how they do it. They manipulate the American people through intimidation and fear. Do not fear. If you don't fear the government, you're truly free. So, as I wrap this up, this is a time for courage. As I mentioned, the age of cowardice in the United States or being too busy trying to survive, those days are gone. The environment is collapsing. Our economy is on the verge of collapse. The federal government has programs in place that when the economy does collapse, to take care of civil unrest in a very extreme fashion. Some of you know about that. It's a very serious time. It's a time for courage. It's a time for truth. Secret activity, especially illegal secret activity, is like scorpions and cockroaches. You turn the light on and they can't handle it, man. They scramble for the nearest bookshelf or what, right? So it is with government. The Founding Fathers wrote document after document after document saying the Constitution was created to protect the people from the tyranny of government because government will go evil every time. That's its nature. The Bill of Rights was not written to govern the people. It was written to protect the people from the tyranny of government. That's the whole reason it was written. Courageous people like Dane, Geoengineering Watch. Does that look like a normal sky to you? God bless Dane for what he's doing. You know, he is doing this out of character, really. Raw courage and character at personal sacrifice. And I'll have to tell you, Dane is the one that got me to come back in from the wilderness, from off the grid, because I had seen this go up to such high levels, and I know some of the penetrations in the media. I had just had it. So I went off building my little off-the-grid farm and put up our solar panels, and I think Dane worked me over for a couple of months. And finally, I said, you know, this guy's really a man of integrity, and I'll do it. And that's why I'm here, honestly. It's because of Dane. So I thank you, Dane. I appreciate that. Amen. I have to sit, my wife and I have to sit on our beautiful off-the-grid farm, get up in the morning, and we have to see this sky over Vidalia, Georgia. What used to be a beautiful blue sky, we have to sit there and watch this on a Monday, 94 degrees centigrade. 9 o'clock in the morning. Tuesday morning, it's not there. All those trails are gone. There's an ongoing joke I have with my wife. I'll lean to Sue and I'll say, man, it looks like they canceled all the traffic, air traffic over Georgia. There's no condensation anywhere. You see what a joke that is? One day, the laws of physics are one way, and the next day, all the laws of physics change. One day there's trails. The next day, they canceled all the flights over Georgia. Come on, how ridiculous can it get? But it ruins our skyline. I went off the grid out in the wilderness to get away from government tyranny and all the ugliness I've seen, and now I have to sit on my front porch and see them do it again in the sky. We have got to bring the truth in about autism. There are kids suffering. It is now, by all scientists read, it is an epidemic, exponential epidemic. This is so serious. We've got to stop accepting the intimidation, the career destruction, the attacks on reputation, and I've got to give the vax people, I love people that have the guts and the courage to take the heat that the establishment is throwing at them and keep going anyway. Call me what you want, pal. I'm going to keep going, and nothing's going to stop me. That's what they're doing. And you don't know how refreshing it is for me to see that, having kind of been alone for several years in this. All right, we have got to stop government's tyrannical overreach of our entire lives. They've been following, bugging, and eavesdropping on every single thing that we do for way too long. They've been scaring us and intimidating us into not rocking the boat for way too long. I like to put it this way. You got a neighbor who comes to you and says, hey, two guys from the Lions Club were knocked on my door. They're asking questions about you. Okay, no big deal. What if that neighbor comes to you and says, hey man, two guys from the CIA knocked on my door and they're asking questions about it. How are you going to feel? What are you going to feel? Fear. That's their weapon. Another analogy I like to use is these agencies, the CIA and others, are like the Wizard of Oz. Remember that movie? I'm big, powerful Oz. Lightning bolts shooting out of us. You will not mess with me or you will be destroyed. And then the dog pulls the curtain away and there's this little tiny guy in there working the levers. That's our government. They want us to be scared of them with this big, mean face, but they're a bunch of little tiny bureaucrats pulling levers trying to make you afraid of them, and that's how they do it. What do we have? What do we need to bring back is this. We, the people, are supposed to run our government, not the other way around. They are supposed to work for us, not us for them. And the only thing that's going to change this is courage. People like many of you out there that are standing up and saying, enough is enough, not anymore, not my country, you don't, not my Constitution, you don't. I want to leave you with one final thought. Please remember this, because this is what it all comes down to. I learned this personally. As long as I feared them covering up this case, not only were they winning, they were breaking into my house, they were drugging my dog, they were painting chemicals on the ceiling. But once I decided I'm not going to be afraid of you anymore, I'm coming out full bore, and I'm coming out against you full bore all the way, that's when things started to work on our side. And that's when we started to win, and that's how we got the book out. When I made that decision, I will not fear you, the last thing I told them was this, and then I'll put this quote up. Last thing I said to them, I said, the same courage that made me a good CIA officer here with you is the same courage that is enabling me to stand up against you now. And that's the last thing I told them before I walked out the door. And they know it. So I want you to remember this as I close. When people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, when they fear you, there's liberty. And that's what it's all about. Thank you very much.